Next up, we've got our farms, our soils, our bodies. So this is an incredibly important topic, just like this morning's panel was as well. This is a topic that affects us all, whether we realize it or not. And unfortunately, most of our work, even though we're talking to the choir right now, we don't realize what these decisions, how these decisions are impacting both the environment and ourselves. So Jim Ewing is going to moderate the panel. If you'd like to come on up. Jim, some of y'all might know, especially in the Jackson area, wrote for years for the Clarion Ledger. Now he's writing for himself, and he's published a number of books. One of them, Conscious Food. I believe we have a copy of the raffle up there. You should put lots of tickets in there. But also, if you see him at some point, I'm sure he'd be happy to sell you one. He also is a farmer, organic farmer, certified naturally grown farmer, Shoe Fly Farms, right just outside of Jackson. And currently, he's one of the founding members of the MSAN board of directors. He works with SSARE, so you've probably seen him out there at the SSARE table. If you haven't, go visit him. But he's going to moderate this panel and tell you about all the great people we have on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for being here. We've got a pretty wonderful, distinguished panel coming up, and our soils, our bodies is the topic. Let's get our panelists on up here. Sit down. While they're sitting down, I think that it's probably important that we think about what this means, our soils and our bodies. The panelists that we have are all very distinguished, and we're extremely privileged to have them here. They come from various backgrounds, so I'll go ahead and give a brief background. If you look in your program book, it has more extensive, but just for a highlight, we have Dr. Tyrone Hayes, who just gave us an incredible presentation a moment ago. He's a biologist specializing in amphibians and development in regard to herbicides, a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. We have Dr. Dan Jones, former chancellor of the University of Mississippi, now interim chair of Department of Medicine and professor of medicine and physiology at University of Mississippi Medical Center. Dr. Girish Panicker, director of the Center for Conservation Research with vegetable and fruit crops at Alcorn State University, and professor of its Department of Agriculture, overseeing more than 20 acres of orchards. Fratesi, a farmer, co-owner of Beaverdam Fresh Farms of Cedar Bluff, Mississippi. And Lindsay Wilson, community herbalist, yoga teacher, owner of Sweet Gum Springs Apothecary in Starkville, Mississippi. So as you can see, we have a rather diverse panel, and but they all have something to say regarding our bodies and our soils, which, as we saw from Dr. Hayes' presentation, what's in our soil or affecting our soil can have immense effects upon our bodies, our health, our families, and our environment. And so that's what brings us together as far as this panel is concerned. Each of our panelists will speak for 5 minutes about his or her area of expertise, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the floor, where you can ask more about different issues and whatnot. And then Sarah is going to keep time for me. And our panelists, you'll see Sarah raise your hand. She's going to do a little hand signal, so that when you have 2 minutes left, she'll give 2, and then 1 minute, and then close her fist. That means to wrap it up. Okay, so we're going to start with Dr. Hayes. We're going to go in alphabetical order. Dr. Hayes?
Well, my interests haven't changed in the last 5 minutes, so maybe I should just pass on. Maybe I can give an extra minute to everybody else. How about that?
Next will be Dan Jones.
All right, so good afternoon. I'm accustomed to being in science audiences and not in front of a diverse audience like this in the company of distinguished farmers. You were talking distinguished earlier, right? Distinguished farmers. So I wanted you to see my credentials for being on this stage. So this is my garden in my backyard. I'm a firm believer in not farm the table, but garden the table. All right, let's hit the next slide. Just go through the next 2, 3. There you go. There's my harvest from the springtime, early summer. And there's, anybody would recognize a good Mississippi tomato. Those happen to be Copiah County tomatoes. And Copiah County does have the best dirt in Mississippi. There you go, my humble peas. And then what's left? My fruit, my pear. All right, so here's what I want to say to this audience. I've been involved in healthcare for all of my life. Most of you are aware that the United States has lots of advantages in a healthcare system. People who can afford it receive the best health care in the world in our country. People who can afford it and who have access to health care. But we have not among the best healthcare statistics in the world, but really we're kind of mediocre. Among industrialized nations, we're kind of down in the lower third of health statistics, important things like longevity, infant birth rate, and so forth. The reason for this is not because we don't have good health care. The reason for this is because we have such a wide spread between health policy in our country, poor health policy, and agriculture policy. And we live in a country where corn is subsidized and used for fuel, and fresh fruits and vegetables, which is what all of us need to make ourselves healthier, are not subsidized. We need to live in a country where everyone, regardless of their income status, has a better opportunity for good health. Not just by being closer to good hospitals and good doctors and good nurses, but by having easy access to good food, to real food. And that's fresh fruits and vegetables. So one of the things that I've learned in traveling around the world, studying health systems in other parts of the world, and health in other parts of the world, when I began treating patients in Korea a few years ago, and I would use my usual approach to talking about nutrition that I've used in the U.S., I would begin with a list of things that my patients should not eat. Say, don't eat salt, don't eat too much fat, don't eat too many calories. And American patients would look at me and say, okay, I'm going to try to avoid those things. My patients in Asia would always look at me and say, but tell me what I should eat. This changed my approach, not only with my Asian patients, but with my American patients, to quit talking about things to avoid and begin talking about the things that we should eat. And so I began my nutrition conversation with my patients around 5 fresh fruits and vegetables a day. If you do that, and keep your waist size reasonably close to what it should be, then you're going to be okay with your nutrition. And your health will depend on these distinguished farmers to get us the food that we need. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to the good discussion with this distinguished panel.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Dr. Panicker.
Good afternoon. I'm very glad to be here today to talk about this subject because one great sailor, Columbus, left to Portugal with a team of people looking for 500 years ago, looking for what? For spices and condiments, for food. So we are all here because of him. Hundreds of years ago, 500 years ago. Instead of going to the east, he went to the west, so we are here. So he was looking for a place in India, the southwestern part of India. It was called the land of spices. It is the oldest port in the world, 4,000 years old. It is the first 7 churches in the world built by St. Thomas, 2,000 years ago. It is the first mosque in the world, even though there were no Muslims. It is the oldest synagogue in the world, oldest temples, everything. I am from that area. I am from the same place, the land of spices. I am the only person in Mississippi from that place. So I'm so lucky also.
Not true.
I am a PhD from Mississippi State in blueberry. So blueberry is the highest, most expensive food in the nation. The second highest content of antioxidants. And last year almost 560,000 Americans got killed because of cancer. Over 40,000 ladies. 560,000 got killed last year. It is more than the total number of US Army got killed. The Second World War. It was only 440. So we have a duty to stop all those things. Otherwise, we are failed. I cannot say that. Education is the production of change in human behavior. After getting PhD, we cannot do many things. That means we fail. And I introduced turmeric, one of the most widely consumed spices and condiments in the world. It prevents cancer, even cures cancer. It cuts cholesterol, it protects liver. There are so many uses of this plant. I already introduced one rhizome to more than 600 farmers in the States. So I'm trying to make this is number one in turmeric production. And also, we got recently $500,000 to introduce melons from around the globe. So I introduced 103 varieties. So today I'll be distributing, and we are going to show all the slides just fast. Whatever fruits and vegetables you see here, you can see most of them you have not seen. But I have the seeds for you. So each and every plant, whether it is a fruit or vegetable or nuts or spice and condiment, they all have medicines. They can cure cancer. 6 years ago, my doctor told me, my cat's doctor, the cat stomach was working. The doctor said she would die within 6 months. So I tried the same thing which I have been telling people. I gave the same thing to my cat. 6 years back, my cat is still alive. So that shows that whatever we are telling, advising people to eat, consume spices, condiments, everything more. In case of soil, our grandparents used to tell us, soil is the greatest gift of God. We all came from soil, we'll go back to the soil. But if we tell the present generation that sentence, they don't like it. If there is no soil, no water. With no soil and water, no plants. With no plants, no insects, no birds, no animals, no human beings. So we the agriculturists have to produce food for 7.2 billion people. You like chicken, turkey, goat, sheep, cattle, soy, everything. Look at those birds and animals. They are vegetarians. All are vegetarians. So if that soil is unhealthy, they are unhealthy. We are eating, we are unhealthy. That is what is going on. Plus there are 3 items in the food. Sugar, salt, and oil. These are the 3 items that make the food tasty. If we control those 3 items, we will not have any problem. But we don't control. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Fratesi. I am part owner of Beaverdam Fresh Farms and Beaverdam Fresh Market. We do a pasture-raised livestock operation in Cedar Bluff, Mississippi, and then we also do a food hub or food aggregation. Beaverdam, I'm not talking loud enough, is that better? Okay, Beaverdam Fresh Market, which is an online farmers market, and we purchase products from other farmers and resell them across the state with our foods as well. And we got into farming because we wanted to save the world. We learned that by rotating animals on pasture, we can spread their manure all across the ground. That manure can bring more microorganisms to the soil. It can hold more water, grow more grass, which can capture more carbon. We are on another farmer's property. He's not here today, but he should be. He's an amazing farmer, Johnny Ray and his wife Deb Ray, and they do grass-fed beef. And we partnered with him back in 2013, and he was excited about the way that we raise our chickens. My husband worked on polyface farms, Joel Salatin's farm in Virginia, and we use his model of rotational grazing. So the cattle are moved every day to a fresh spot, and they are only in an area that they can eat within that day. And then 3 days later, we move our laying hens to that spot, and the laying hens break up the manure of the cattle. They eat the worms and different things out of the manure so that the cows don't have problems later, they don't have parasites. And then we move our meat chickens every single day. And we also have pigs that we have in pastures and wooded areas, and they eat acorns. They supplement about 30 to 40% of their diet on acorns, grasses, forages, and the rest we feed them a non-GMO grain, and about 70% of that grain is grown in Alabama. And we just found that this way of farming was the best way that we could really make a difference and that we could provide healthy food for our community and feel good about what we did for a living. And I myself didn't really eat pork before I started farming pigs, but now there's such a difference in the meat. And it's kind of funny because the pork industry calls pork the other white meat, but like pigs that have been raised out on pasture, their meat is red. And it is marbled and it's beautiful, and the fat has vitamin D in it, and it's healthy for us to eat. It helps us digest that lean meat. And I have never felt more fulfilled in my life, and I've met so many wonderful people through farming. And in the winter time, another thing I'd like to mention about the soil is we put our animals in high tunnels and in barns because the soil microbes are inactive after 50 degrees. And so if we were to let them continue to spread their manure, it would just become a waste product and would wash away in our streams and contribute to nitrogen pollution. And so what we do is our landowner, he will put his cows in the barn and he will put wood chips. We get them free from the highway department because they're always cleaning up limbs. And then he'll lay down corn. And then after he moves his cattle out in the spring, our pigs will turn his compost looking for that fermented corn, and then he'll pile up his compost, and it's made in a lot quicker time, and then he spreads it out over his fields so his grass grows better. And he's had a soil biologist come and take different samples from all over the farm, and they're finding lots more native grasses are coming back up. And if you know much about plants, they are not able to uptake nutrients that aren't there. But with us providing manure and a place for water storage, they don't need to irrigate as much. And so we're holding more water on the land when it does rain, and we're holding more nutrients as well. Thank you.
So, my name is Lindsay Wilson, and I'm an herbalist. And for whatever reason, in the Deep South, we're few and far between. Out west, I think a little bit more dime a dozen, right? There's a little bit more where it's common knowledge what to do with plants and how to take them. So, and a lot of what I do here in Mississippi with herbalism, I'm harvesting mostly local, native, and naturalized, and especially invasive plants, because they're actually begging us to use them. So that's a lot of what I use as well. Mimosa is a great herb, kudzu is a great herb. Even first succession trees like sweet gum and red cedar are amazing medicine. In the mountains we have Japanese knotweed, which has the highest level of resveratrol in all the plant world. So this is an invasive species, and it's actually helping us with serious things like Lyme's disease. So my path to herbalism was winding, and I definitely had to trailblaze my own path. And I'm originally from Mississippi. I was raised mostly in New Orleans and Louisville, Mississippi. Anybody know? Raise your hand, Louisville, Mississippi. All right. Anybody from Louisville? All right, just me. That's what I'm used to. Don't worry. All right. So even I was actually in Peace Corps, and they introduced me as being from Louisville, Mississippi, and I'm like, oh, Louisville. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, my path to being an herbalist was winding, and it started actually. I went to undergrad at University of Mississippi. I got a bachelor's in print journalism. Right? That's what herbalists do. Yeah. Okay. So then I went to Peace Corps, and I ended up in Ukraine, where it is very cold. But I also saw, beautiful soil, and for whatever reason, even though I was from an agricultural state, I had my first agricultural experiences many, many, many miles away in Ukraine. I looked at the ice fishermen, and I milked my first cow, even though in Starkville, that used to be the dairying capital of the southeast, the Oktok region. We used to have more Jerseys than people, Jersey cows. So, and now I think there's one Jersey cow, and the one flies the sperm in from California, and they get her knocked up, inseminated at MSU, and then, then she can produce milk. I mean, that's what we've come to. But anyway, so in Ukraine, I went through a really serious health crisis while in Peace Corps, and so catapulted me into severe depression, dizzy spells, insomnia, heart palpitations, and strange gastric fluctuations in my whole chest cavity. Strange things that shouldn't be burping, like my spleen and my gallbladder were burping. So I went to a doctor in Prague, because I lived in Prague for a while, and she told me to drink more green tea after I gave her that list. So, you know, I was really exasperated, and then I went to a doctor in Mississippi, and he wanted to get me on birth control. And I'm like, great. Basically, the message was, you're on your own, my dear. So I moved out to San Francisco. I wanted a nonprofit job. I found one. My first job was with San Francisco League of Urban Gardeners, which is a horrible acronym, which is SLUG. You know, a group of gardeners, and their acronym is SLUG. And I worked with a transitional employment program with formerly incarcerated, mostly African American men trying to get back in the workforce. So we built all kinds of gardens, and we did landscaping things and cleaned up in the city, and it was really intense. But while working there, I met an herbalist. I went to him. I got my first preparation, which was hawthorn and passion flower, and my palpitations started to go away. Eventually they were gone, and I started sleeping better. And we all know if you start sleeping better, you can heal. So my life also changed. I started eating totally different, and I went to a permaculture design course out there, which was actually grant provided. Normally a permaculture program, has anybody looked into permaculture? Raise your hand if you know what I'm saying, permaculture. Okay. Normally they're like $1,200, $1,400 bucks. I took a permaculture design course. It was funded by the city, and it was like 75 bucks for a great program. And so I started connecting with the soil, I started connecting with food, I started connecting with my body, I started figuring out where water came from. I dug my first carrot out of the ground, and it felt like, you know, I did some amazing act of God. You know, I'm like, oh, it's a purple carrot, purple haze was the seed varietal. But it was amazing, and I even took a picture of my cat with it. But I started healing my body by going deeper and deeper and deeper into where maybe my dysfunction could have come from and where this disease had come from for me. And slowly over time, I started studying herbalism, and then, you know, eventually I switched into being an herbalist, and so my work continues today. And a lot of what I do is just teaching people how to eat and where to get their food, and also racking my brain at how we can design a society where people actually are nourished and fed and sustained. So that is a big purpose of my work, and it's been a big part of my healing process, and I'm so excited to be here and on this great panel and hearing all these great speakers, so thank you.
I've got a few introductory remarks from each individual, so do we have any questions for our panel? Oh, come on. There we go.
I'll start it off. This is money for Dr. Hayes. I assume this would be for Dr. Hayes. I've heard a lot years ago that girls are entering puberty at younger and younger age. And I even heard even age 5, things like that. What do you think causes that? I want to get a better feel for that whole issue and what causes it. And you can repeat the question if you like.
So the question is, has the rate of entering puberty for girls decreased? Right? Is it happening earlier? And so this is actually a topic that I just taught in my class a couple weeks ago. One is, nobody, in terms of the hormones, people don't really understand what triggers puberty. We know what some of the factors are, but it's still not quite understood. And the other thing that we don't understand is whether or not, or even what age, boys enter puberty. Because every girl knows exactly when she entered puberty, because you get your period, right? But puberty by definition is when you start producing mature gametes. I bet you that every female in this room knows exactly when she reaches puberty. No guy knows when they start producing sperm. We just don't have the data. But the data are now that the age of puberty is decreasing, and especially for black girls, I think the numbers are something like 20% of 5-year-old black girls show signs of puberty. And the puberty for African American girls is 1.5 years to 2 years younger. Some of the suggestions have to relate to nutrition and higher body fat, because body fat is associated with when you go into puberty. So if you're maintaining more body fat, you potentially go in earlier. And there are hormonal reasons for that, both estrogen production by fat as well as a hormone called leptin that stimulates the reproductive axis. But also not just the fat, but fat also holds chemicals that in some cases interfere with reproduction. Not atrazine, but chemicals like BPA and some of the pesticides like DDT are stored in fat. So also the more fat you're holding, the more of these endocrine disrupting compounds you're holding, which may induce early puberty. And also, as I mentioned earlier, black and Hispanic and low-income individuals are more likely to live in areas where they're exposed to these chemicals. So the body burden for minorities of these chemicals is higher than it is for majority individuals. So the observation is true, but the reasons aren't quite clear. All of those factors are probably involved.
Considering these ailments or diseases that are in the body, have you all looked at or read how plant fungi or mushrooms help turn the tides on the problems that are going on? Because sometimes mushrooms produce electricity in the body, and it like reverses some diseases. I don't know a whole lot about it, I'm reading a little bit, and so you all
Yeah. I know exactly who that is. There's a whole host of, yes, let me repeat the question, which is, what are medicinal mushrooms doing in the body to turn around chronic disease? Okay, so what are some of the mechanisms? Yeah. So medicinal mushrooms, most of them are a variety that are called polypores. So if you flip over the mushroom, there's pores instead of gills, and most of those, all of those are medicinal. Some have gills like shiitake, but most of them are polypore. And across the board, they have similar mechanisms. They're all anti-inflammatory, so they're going to bring down systemic inflammation. And that's most of the issues that we're dealing with a lot of these chronic diseases, especially with toxin exposure, heavy metal exposure. We have that systemic inflammation. Or if it's childhood trauma, another great development everybody should know about is the ACE study. Please look at it, Adverse Childhood Experiences. So there's a great TED Talk on that, actually. So systemic inflammation will bring down that inflammation. It's blood sugar balancing, which is also needed. There's probably the most research done in herbs on mushrooms for its anti-cancerous properties. So they curb angiogenesis. They'll keep the blood, the vessel formation that feeds tumors. They'll curb that. And they're also safe to use during chemotherapy. So they'll help protect the cells from radiation, and they'll help curb the expansion or growth of the tumor. So, but you can, there's quite a bit of literature and research that you can find online now. Some of the top mushrooms, I would say, would be turkey tail. Reishi, of course, is high up in traditional Chinese medicine. Cordyceps is another fantastic herb. Some of you may know about this one. It grows out of the back of an insect, and that's harvested. So that's kind of fun and strange to look at images. And we have a lot of local to this area. So, we have reishi and turkey tail in abundance. If you go towards the mountains, we also have chaga. So there's quite a bit of these mushrooms that you can find locally. So those are its key aspects, and certain mushrooms have an affinity a bit more towards an organ system than others. So for turkey tail, for example, there's the most research on breast cancer. So you'll find the most information in that regard. But they do share similarities across the board. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome.
And I'll also speak to quickly about how mycorrhizal fungi also contributes to plant health, which then contributes to our health. So plants can only uptake the nutrients that are there with them, and mycorrhizal fungi, which is if you like lift up a log and you see all the white spiderwebby looking stuff, that's the mycorrhizal. The fungi, the fruit is actually the mushroom. So anyway, that mycorrhizal growth helps break down nutrients for the plant to uptake it, and if it's not there, if the mycorrhizal fungi is not there, then the plants can't uptake that growth, and that's why it's so important to have organic matter and manure for our plants to be able to feed off of, because if we're just putting the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in the soil and there's no organic matter to hold water and to have all those living microbes, then we're not having those nutrients come into our plants. And the mycorrhizal fungi make the different nutrients available for the plants to uptake. So even if those nutrients are there, if they don't have those certain funguses, those plants can't even uptake those nutrients. And one more quick little thing, my husband likes to call us entrepreneurs instead of entrepreneurs, because our farm rotates so much around, animal poop. Question?
I would like to listen to the keynote speaker, and the man talked about early breast development in young girls. I had a friend who had to put her daughter on medication because at 8 years old she was developing breast. But something else that I have observed, and you might think it's funny, but I was raised up in the cotton field, and so you work hard, you sweat, and you get musty. The grown people work hard and get musty. But really, I have seen 3-year-old and 4-year-old children that smell like a musty grown man. And I don't think your lust glands are supposed to be developed at 3 and 4 years old. So I was just wondering, what would your thoughts be on that?
I mean, some of it could be related to the same thing. Like, as I said, the statistics are now, I believe, that 20% of black girls age 4 to 5. But also some of your body smell, some of your odor is also related to the microbiota. Oh, so the question was about sort of musty odor and developing earlier in young people. And so some of that's, I think, related to the early puberty, but also some of that may be related to microbiota, the microorganisms that are also on the individual.
I'll just add to that with a quick story. What we eat has a lot to do with our body odor. So a friend of mine was asked by his father to transport a fellow student from Ole Miss to their home for the weekend. And he was not very happy about that request because it was a student from Pakistan, and, he thought he smelled bad. So anyway, after some more conversation with his father, they got in the car together to drive home, and on the way home he learned that his friend from Pakistan didn't want to ride with him because he said Americans all smell bad. right? And it's a lot has to do with the dairy products that we eat, different country to country, but a lot of it, what smells good and what smells bad is a lot based on the foods that we're used to eating in our cultural accommodation.
Yeah, Mr. Daniel, can you open my presentation? I think the 5th or 6th slide, a slide published by the American Pediatric Association says the puberty comes earlier in girls because of pesticides. And we are, in this room, nobody is healthy, including me. We carry more than 500 POPs, persistent organic pollutants in our bodies. Those POPs were not there in the bodies of our grandparents before 1930. After the discovery of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, weedicides, nematicides, fungicides, up to 1930. So we carry all those things. So that paper is there, the American Pediatrics. So this is the reference that they published that shows what is going on.
Yes, this is for Dr. Hayes, but anybody anybody can answer. Is there specific benefits with atrazine over pesticides or chemicals in pesticides?
A specific
that are unique benefits for a reason why it's used if it is possible that there's danger to it?
The company argues. Oh, so the question is, what are the benefits of atrazine? Why is it still used? The company argues that it's cheap, that it works. So I guess it's fairly persistent. What are the arguments?
It makes them money.
It makes them money. Those are their arguments. But again, the yield is very, very low. But I guess that translates to quite a bit of money, especially considering the subsidies. The increase in yield is reported being only 1.2% of the. I think most of its use is sort of marketing and the economy of the company, to be honest. There's a catch. The European Union banned it, but now they use a very similar chemical. So it's hard to say what the true losses were, because now they're using a chemical that differs by only one carbon group. So.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up now. We're running out of time. So, we ask one question to. Want to do one more question? Can we do one more question?
One last shot.
One more.
I'm sorry. What can I use to water my garden with? I'm worried now about rainwater and drinking water and groundwater.
That's a good question.
So she asked what should she be watering her garden with, and that's a really good question because she says that rainwater has all these different chemicals in it. Our drinking water has tons of chlorine and fluoride in it. I personally get all my drinking water from a spring, and if you're looking for a spring in your area, you can go to findspring.org. But that's a great question. I also think we should be having filters on our showers because I once heard from someone that if you take a 10-minute shower, it's like drinking a whole pint of chlorine. So, rainwater is probably maybe your best. I don't know the answer to that. It's a bit scary and depressing.
Let me remind people who choose to use something other than water supplied by a city or county water supply. Think of fluoride. You can go without the chlorine, but you need the fluoride. So think about that.
Yeah, I know. In California, we're even in a worst case scenario because of the drought. Once you start getting down to, if you imagine getting down to low water, things are much more concentrated and much more contaminated, and it's a tough question.
If each of you could give just one little piece of advice to the audience here, something they can take home with them, maybe on an uplifting note, rather than some of the things we're saying which are important, but something positive about our bodies, our health, our soil, our food, that we can carry with us. Thank you.
Yeah, my advice is, I noticed that students, when I came to this country, I was a graduate student, I noticed in the cafeteria, the students take a lot of food in the tray. Some of them, they put the whole thing on hat to go to the trash. You notice that. And also I noticed that present-day children, I noticed they are not eating vegetables and fruits much. According to the fruit growers, now America exports more fruit than ever before. And in this country, no food is sold for $1 per pound, except banana coming from a foreign country. So many people cannot buy it. Blueberries, $10 per pound, prevents urinary infection, ladies. Muscarine from breast cancer, $4 per pound. And persimmon, I have persimmon here, okay? I put all the seeds here, and I have cheaper of this cloth, this on the rhizome for this plant. A lot of seeds here, please collect this. Because, please tell the children, because when we are eating vegetables, fruits, nuts, spices and condiments. And fruits and nuts, these are the only 2 food items in this world. Fruits and nuts, these are the only 2 food items. The children, they refuse to tell them. These are the only 2 food items in this world we the human beings can eat without cooking. If you cook, you are losing everything. When you make pie, apple pie, gone, everything gone. So we are paying a lot of money and bringing cooking gone. So I tell children to eat vegetables and fruits because we have to take out, because the US government spends almost $200 billion to fight obesity.
I guess my positive thing is it's really positive for me to interact with people who are coming at this from different backgrounds. I know some stuff, you know some different stuff, and this exchange of information and sharing of information is what I think is important, what I think is really going to change the world and change the state of where we're at. You know, I say to my students all the time, as a professor, much more important than what I teach you is what I learn from you. And I feel the same way when I'm in such a diverse group as this. So thank you for the information and knowledge that you shared with me, and I will take it with me elsewhere.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. So my parting advice is 5 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. Where do you get it? First choice is your own backyard, out of your own garden and fruit trees. Second choice is local farmers market. And the third choice, if you have to go to the grocery store, shop in the periphery of the grocery store. That's where the fresh food is, and the peripheries. Try to stay away from the middle aisles of the grocery store where the processed food is.
I'm going to have to second his. I'm going to say support your local farmers, get your nutrient-dense food from your backyard or your local farmers when you know that it's been harvested, you know, within the last day or that day. And we have a lot of good farmers here. We have a lot of rainfall, maybe not in the past few months, but you know, this is a good state for growing food, and we have an amazing community, and thank you all for being here today.
Right. Actually, any good herbalist will always start with food and nutrition first. So please cook with friends, please share food, please grow something, please put a seed in the ground, plant something. And then the next thing is pay attention to the weeds coming up in your garden, around your home. I've gone to many garden clubs in Mississippi and now made them embrace the dandelion, which is one of our best herbs. And herbs are so wonderful, all innately. They are all anti-inflammatory to some degree. And even all of them have nervine properties to some degree. There are some stimulants, but they're rare, the stimulant nervines. Most of them are relaxing and good for the nervous system. But the main thing, and I think is so important for people, is the anti-inflammatory parts of plants. But get to know your weeds, get to know plantain, get to know dandelion, get to know yellow dock. These are all coming up in everybody's yards. Even the most barren, bland, terrible-looking grass yard will have an anarchist little dandelion in there. Eat the flower, eat the leaves, dig up the root, chew on it, see what happens. This is an amazing medicine, great for the liver, and great nutrition in those leaves. They actually grow the leaves on purpose in France. I think they're now at Kroger in Starkville, and I'm really impressed, but it took a while. So yeah, please eat plants, get to know your weeds.
Let's give our panel a round of applause.
All right, while we have